Let's begin with the coin that hides one of the most shocking twists in U.S. mint history, the 1971 Kennedy half-dollar. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Just another silver-colored coin with that familiar portrait of President John F. Kennedy, proud, calm, and dignified. But what if I told you that this simple half-dollar, especially in certain rare conditions, has become a silent millionaire maker for a few lucky collectors? You see, 1971 was a turning point for the Kennedy series. Up until 1970, these coins still contained real silver, 40% silver, to be exact. But in 1971, the mint decided to remove silver completely and switch to a copper-nickel composition. That meant the 1971 Kennedy half-dollar should have zero silver content. However, something unexpected happened deep inside the U.S. Mint that year. A mysterious transition error that slipped through the cracks. A few 1971 Kennedy halves were accidentally struck on leftover 40% silver planchets from 1970. These rare errors, invisible to the naked eye, look almost identical to regular coins. But once tested, they reveal their true nature, genuine silver strikes that were never supposed to exist. It's like holding a ghost coin, a relic of an era that ended too soon. Now imagine this: one of these silver 1971 half-dollars was discovered by a collector in a random coin roll. The coin looked unassuming, slightly worn, maybe a bit dull from circulation. But after testing, it turned out to be a 1971D struck on a silver planchet, weighing slightly heavier than normal. When it hit the auction block, it fetched over $12,000. And some near-perfect examples are rumored to have sold privately for nearly $25,000 or more, depending on silver content and strike clarity. And fine condition, like the one you might find in your collection. Slightly worn but still detailed, it could bring a few $100s if confirmed as a silver error. But in uncirculated or mint state, verified silver planchet versions have crossed the five-figure range, and collectors believe there are still a few more undiscovered examples floating around. Imagine that. A coin everyone thought was worthless, suddenly becoming a $20,000 shocker, and it doesn't stop there. Even the regular copper-nickel 1971 half-dollars can carry secrets. Some display unusual die errors, off-center strikes, double die obverses, or missing clad layers that reveal a raw copper core. Depending on the severity, those can push a regular coin's value from just 50 cents to over $2,000 in top condition. What makes this coin so captivating is the mix of mystery and history behind it. It marks the end of the Silver Age and the birth of the modern half-dollar. Collectors call it the line in the sand, the last chance to find real silver hiding where it shouldn't be. And for many longtime hobbyists, this coin represents more than money. It's a reminder of when the U.S. Mint's smallest mistakes became our greatest treasures. So the next time you see a 1971 Kennedy half-dollar, don't brush it aside. Weigh it carefully. The normal ones should come in at 11.34 grams, but the silver planchet errors weigh closer to 11.5 grams. That tiny difference could be worth tens of thousands. Some experts even say more of these errors may still be sitting unnoticed in coin jars, estate boxes, or old mint sets, quietly waiting to change someone's life. Now, if you thought the 1971 Kennedy half-dollar was fascinating, wait until you hear about this next one. A coin that blends American history, mystery, and a bit of confusion that still keeps collectors talking today. The 1776 to 1971 bicentennial Kennedy half-dollar. Now, you might be thinking, hold on, wasn't the bicentennial coin from 1976? You'd be absolutely right, and that's exactly what makes this one so intriguing. Every bicentennial Kennedy half-dollar was supposed to be dated 1776 to 1976, honoring the 200th anniversary of America's independence. But when a coin appears bearing 1776 to 1971, something clearly went wrong. Or maybe, something very right for collectors. This mysterious variety is believed to have been the result of a rare misstrike or die preparation error, where the minting dies were improperly stamped or altered during testing periods in the early 1970 seconds. Imagine a mint employee running test. Strikes before the official bicentennial. Dies were ready and accidentally creating a hybrid between the old 1971 die and the future bicentennial design. Most of these test coins were supposed to be melted down, never to be seen by the public. But as history shows, a few slip through. And those few are the reason collectors' hearts still race when they hear 17761971. The design itself is a piece of American pride. On the front, Kennedy's familiar portrait, strong, youthful, timeless. On the back, the majestic image of Independence Hall, the very place where the Declaration of Independence was signed. The detail is breathtaking. Every line of the building, every tiny window, perfectly captured in shining metal. Even in fine condition, that design carries the spirit of 1776. But if your coin shows 1776 to 1971, you might be looking at something that simply shouldn't exist. In fine condition, this unusual variety, when authenticated, could start around $850 to $1,500, depending on the strike, clarity, and provenance. But in uncirculated or proof-like condition, the few confirmed examples have stunned collectors, bringing in more than $50,000 at specialized auctions. One particularly well-preserved coin with a mirrored finish and a distinct 1776 to 1971 double-date mistrike is rumored to have fetched nearly $100,000 in a private sale to a patriotic collector who simply couldn't resist its historical power. And here's where it gets even more shocking. A handful of silver-clad bicentennial halves were struck by mistake before the mint officially switched to the copper-nickel versions. Those early strikes, possibly connected to the same experimental die runs, are nearly priceless today. We're talking estimates as high as $450,000 or more for verified mint errors tied to the early bicentennial preparations. That's not just a collector's coin, that's a national treasure. Collectors today are urged to examine any bicentennial half-dollars carefully. Check the date. Look closely with a magnifier. If the second date looks slightly off, perhaps the 6 looks more like a 1, or the 17761976 seems crudely repunched. You may be holding an ultra-rare die trial or a transition piece worth more than your car, your house, or even your retirement savings. In fine condition, these coins show light wear on Kennedy's hair and cheek, and the reverse often loses a bit of definition on the roofline of Independence Hall. But even worn, they're a sight to behold, a patriotic piece of art, connecting modern America with its revolutionary roots. It's no wonder collectors keep hunting for variations, convinced that one day, another 1776 to 1971 bicentennial Kennedy half-dollar will emerge and rewrite history all over again. Moving on, let's turn the pages of time back to 1968, a year of change, emotion, and a quiet revolution at the U.S. Mint. And right at the heart of it all was the 1968 Kennedy half-dollar, a coin that might look ordinary at first glance, until you realize just how many hidden surprises it holds. The 1968 Kennedy half-dollar marks an important comeback, the return of the mint mark after a brief disappearance. In 1965, 1966, and 1967, the mint removed mint marks entirely to discourage collectors from hoarding coins during a nationwide coin shortage. But by 1968, the D mark of Denver proudly returned beneath Kennedy's neck, and with it came a fresh wave of collector excitement. This small detail, just one tiny letter, makes all the difference when it comes to value. Even more interesting, the 1968 Kennedy half-dollar was struck in 40% silver, one of the last years the mint used real silver in circulation. Each coin carries a subtle, elegant sheen, brighter than the modern copper-nickel versions, yet softer than the fully silver 1964 issues. But in fine condition, the one you might be holding right now. The magic lies not just in the metal, but in the mystery of its potential errors. You see, the 1968 series is notorious for die misalignments, missing mint marks, and double strikes, each capable of transforming an ordinary coin into a collector's dream. One verified 1968D Kennedy half-dollar with a missing mint mark sold for nearly $10,000, simply because it shouldn't exist. Another, featuring a doubled, "In God We Trust" inscription, stunned auction houses with the final bid exceeding $25,000, and in near-perfect and circulated condition, especially those graded Ms. 68 or higher. Prices have skyrocketed beyond $40,000 for examples with exceptional luster and flawless strike. But there's more. Some collectors have discovered rare proof strikes from the San Francisco Mint that escaped into circulation. These proofs, with mirror-like fields and frosted details, were never meant to be spent. If you find one that's even slightly circulated, don't clean it, you could destroy thousands of dollars in value. Verified 1968S proof halves have sold for over $75,000, and a few rumored ultra-deep cameo versions are believed to be worth upwards of $100,000 to $200,000 in private sales. Now, let us talk about condition. In fine condition, your 1968 Kennedy half-dollar might show light wear across Kennedy's hair and cheek, with slight flattening on the eagle's wings on the reverse. But that's okay even with wear. Its silver content gives it an intrinsic base value. Yet if that same coin happens to display a rare error, like a double die obverse or a transitional planchet, its worth can leap from pocket change to life-changing. And for those who love the thrill of the hunt, here's a little secret. The transitional 1968 error where the coin was struck on a leftover 90% silver planchet from 1964 is one of the rarest finds in the entire Kennedy series. Only a handful have ever surfaced, and they've fetched over $450,000 at auction. Think about that. $500,000 for a coin that looks almost identical to every other 1968 half-dollar. It's the kind of discovery that keeps collectors checking every roll, every jar, every box of coins inherited from a parent or grandparent. What makes the 1968 Kennedy so captivating is how it bridges eras. Part silver, part modern, and fully loaded with surprises. It represents the fading glow of America's silver coinage, the last breath of the true silver age before the copper-nickel era took over. Every time you hold one, you're holding history, and possibly an undiscovered treasure. So before you spend it, before you toss it in a drawer, take a closer look. Check the edges for that bright silver line. Feel the weight. It should come in around 11.5 grams if it's the real silver version. And who knows, that small detail might just turn your 50-cent piece into a $100,000 collectible. Now, it's jump ahead to the dawn of a new decade, 1980. A year that marked fresh beginnings in America, and a fascinating twist in the story of the Kennedy half-dollar. On the surface, the 1980 half-dollar doesn't look particularly rare, just another familiar face of President John F. Kennedy staring proudly into the future. But beneath that polished surface lies a world of secrets, minting mysteries, and shocking auction surprises that continue to leave collectors speechless. By 1980. The days of silver were long gone. The Kennedy half-dollar was now struck entirely from copper-nickel clad, with no silver content at all. Many collectors stopped paying attention, thinking the magic was over. But what they didn't know was that the mint presses in Denver and Philadelphia were producing some of the most error-prone coins in the series, history coins that would later become legends. The 1980 Kennedy half-dollar was struck in huge quantities. Yet certain rare minting mistakes turned a few into six-figure prizes. One of the most jaw-dropping examples is the 1980p, struck on a silver planchet. Yes, a coin struck 9 years after silver was supposedly eliminated from circulation. Experts believe leftover planchets from earlier commemorative strikes may have been accidentally fed into the presses. Only a handful have been found, but one authenticated silver strike 1980 half-dollar sold for a staggering $200,000. Others, in near mint condition with confirmed silver composition, have hit prices close to $250,000. Depending on weight and luster, even the regular clad coins from 1980 hold surprises. The Philadelphia issues, marked with the subtle P mint mark for the first time in the series history, became instant conversation pieces. Before 1980, Philadelphia coins bear no mint mark at all. So that tiny P, the smallest letter on the coin, marks a major historical shift. Collectors prize clean, well-struck examples with bold mint marks, especially those showing die doubling or weak strikes from misaligned dies. One remarkable double die obverse, 1980 half-dollar, showing doubling on Kennedy's profile and the word Liberty, sold at auction for $15,000. Another, with the dramatic off-center strike, the portrait partially cut off, fetched nearly $8,000. And then there's the legend of the missing clad layer, a bizarre minting flaw where one side of the coin lacks its nickel coating, revealing raw copper beneath. Those oddities, though extremely rare, can command between $25,000 and $40,000, depending on condition. In fine condition, your 1980 half-dollar may show smooth wear on Kennedy's hair and cheek, softening the eagle's feathers on the reverse. But here's where the magic lies, because even a coin that looks ordinary can hide an extraordinary secret. Many collectors today are testing 1980 halves for unusual metal content or edge variations. Some of these odd-weight coins, found in old coin rolls and bank bags, are turning out to be early experimental strikes, coins that never should have left the mint, and now sell for well over $100,000. It's hard not to marvel at the symbolism. The 1980 Kennedy half-dollar came at a time when America was shifting toward a new era: technology, change, and modernization. And yet, hidden in those coins are traces of the past, echoes of silver, whispers of the mint's most guarded mistakes, and the kind of numismatic magic that keeps this hobby alive. So, before you dismiss that 1980 half-dollar sitting in your old collection box, take a second look. Weigh it carefully. It should come in at 11.34 grams for a standard clad version. If it's heavier or lighter by even a small fraction, you may have something special. Check the mint mark, study the edges, and if something feels off, get it tested. Because one day, that 50-cent coin could turn out to be a $200,000 piece of forgotten history. Now, let's travel back to 1973. A year that many collectors overlook, but one that hides one of the most fascinating and valuable mysteries in the entire Kennedy half-dollar series. The 1973 Kennedy half-dollar might seem ordinary, but its story is anything but. It's a coin surrounded by confusion, rarity, and a series of minting secrets that even experienced collectors sometimes miss. Here's what makes the 1973 half-dollar so interesting: none of these coins were ever released for general circulation. That's right, every single 1973 Kennedy half-dollar, both from the Philadelphia and Denver mints, was struck only for collector sets. That means if you ever find one in your pocket change, it shouldn't be there. Somehow, it slipped out, and that alone makes it worth looking twice. Each coin from 1973 was minted with extra care, resulting in sharp, detailed strikes and brighter surfaces. Even in fine condition, it carries the aura of a coin that wasn't meant to be spent. But as always, the real excitement begins with the errors, and the 1973 series produced some jaw-dropping mistakes that have become the stuff of legend. One of the most famous is the 1973D struck on a silver planchet, an impossible combination, since silver had been discontinued years earlier. Yet a few of these mysterious pieces exist. When tested, they revealed a 40% silver content, believed to have come from leftover blanks intended for the 1970 collector coins. How they got mixed in with the 1973 strikes remains one of the U.S. Mint's biggest unsolved mysteries. One of these coins, authenticated by a top grading company, sold for an incredible $120,000, and experts estimate only a handful remain undiscovered. Another spectacular variety is the 1973S proof, with deep cameo contrast, struck at the San Francisco Mint. These proofs were part of special collector sets mirror-like fields, frosted portraits, and flawless surfaces. But even more exciting are the rare double die proof strikes, where the lettering on Liberty, or In God We Trust, appears doubled under magnification. In pristine condition, these errors can command over $50,000 and one with perfect cameo depth reached $85,000 at a major auction. Even the regular copper nickel issues can surprise you. A few off-metal strikes coins accidentally struck on. Quarter planchets or foreign coin blanks have been discovered over the years. These oddities are lighter than normal and have incomplete designs near the rim. Their value? Anywhere from $25,000 to $60,000, depending on the metal type and rarity. Imagine finding one of those tucked inside an old 1972 coin jar. Now, in fine condition, your 1973 Kennedy half-dollar will show mild wear across Kennedy's hair and face, with the eagle's wings and shield slightly softened. It might not look like much at first, but even circulated examples can fetch $10 to $50, simply because of their limited mintage and collector-only status. However, if your coin turns out to be one of those rare silver errors or a proof strike that somehow escaped into circulation, the story changes completely. That coin could easily reach six figures, especially if authenticated with clear minting anomalies. What makes the 1973 half-dollar so captivating is that it was never supposed to be found. It's a coin that lives in the gray area between official release and accidental discovery, a time capsule of the mint's experimental period in the early 70s. For collectors, it's a reminder that even in a year where half-dollars were supposedly normal, there are still secrets waiting to be uncovered. And there's one more twist, because in 1973, the mint was quietly preparing for the nation's upcoming bicentennial celebrations. Some insiders believe that early die tests for the 1776 to 1976 design may have overlapped with late 1973 production, leading to transitional test pieces that blur the line between dates. If one of those ever surfaces a 1973 half-dollar with traces of bicentennial elements, it could easily surpass $500,000 in value. Imagine that. $500,000 for a coin struck during a year when nobody was even looking. Now, we come to a coin that most people wouldn't even bother to glance at, the 1993 Kennedy half-dollar. It's modern, it's common, it's everywhere, or so it seems. But the truth behind this coin will make even the most seasoned collectors stop in their tracks. Because buried beneath those dull surfaces, under the scratches and the wear, hides one of the most surprising chapters in the entire Kennedy half-dollar saga. The year 1993 was supposed to be uneventful for half-dollars. The mint produced them in large quantities, over 40 million from Philadelphia, another 15 million from Denver, and none were made with silver for circulation. Most of them went straight into rolls, bags, or forgotten drawers. For years, nobody gave them a second thought. But here's the twist: among all those millions of ordinary coins, a few were anything but ordinary. In the early 90s, the U.S. Mint was experimenting with new metal alloys and planchet compositions to prepare for upcoming commemorative programs. And somehow, during that experimental period, a small batch of 1993 Kennedy halves was accidentally struck on foreign planchets blanks intended for coins of other nations. These planchets were thinner, or slightly off color, and they created coins that looked and felt different. Some even carried a faint silvery tone that led collectors to believe they were struck in silver, though they weren't supposed to be. These strange misstrikes are now some of the most sought-after modern mint errors ever discovered. One authenticated 1993D struck on a 90% silver planchet, a composition that hadn't been used since 1964, sold at auction for over $150,000. Experts believe it was an accidental feed of leftover blanks from a special silver commemorative run. Another, a 1993P struck on a foreign coin blank, weighed just under 10 grams and fetched nearly $65,000, shocking even veteran coin dealers. And the rarest of all, a 1993 Kennedy with a missing clad layer, revealing bright copper across half its surface. That one pulled in an astounding $250,000, one of the highest prices ever recorded for a modern half-dollar error. Even without an error, 1993 halves have their own quiet intrigue. Some proof versions from the San Francisco Mint, Especially the deep cameo strikes are breathtaking. The mirror finish so sharp, it looks like you could fall into it. But even among these proofs, there are mysteries. A tiny handful show double die features or unusual frosting anomalies that set them apart from standard issues. One flawless 1993S proof, deep cameo graded par 70 decam, sold for more than $15,000. Simply because it was perfect. No scratches, no haze. Just perfection, frozen in silver white light. Now, your 1993 Kennedy $half may be in rough shape, no fine condition, worn, maybe even dull or slightly tarnished. But don't let appearances fool you. These modern era coins are where the next generation of six-figure discoveries may come from. Collectors are now scrutinizing every 1990 seconds $half series for signs of transition, planchets, foreign blanks, and rare strike-throughs. The irony? The more ordinary your coin looks, the greater the chance that no one else has noticed its secret yet. Check the edges carefully. A normal 1993 half should show a clean copper line sandwiched between nickel layers. But if yours shows a fully silver-colored edge, or weighs slightly more than 11.34 grams, you could be holding one of the mint's hidden blunders. And if you see an off-center strike or doubling in Kennedy's profile, don't dismiss it. Errors like that can multiply a coin's value thousands of times over. In fine condition, a regular 1993 half might only be worth its face value 50 cents. But if your coin hides an error, even in worn, no fine condition, it could still reach into the tens or hundreds of thousands. That's the magic of the Kennedy series. Every decade, every issue, holds its own mystery. The 1993 Kennedy $half reminds us of something powerful, that not all treasures shine, and not all fortunes look flawless. Sometimes the most valuable discoveries are hiding under wear, tarnish, and time. Just waiting for the right pair of eyes to recognize them. So before you spend it, before you dismiss that old, scratched up 1993 $half, take one more look. Because what looks like 50 cents to the world could be the next $250,000 mint mystery hiding in plain sight. Now, let's start with our first silver treasure, the 1973 Kennedy $half, a coin that at first glance might seem all too common. But in extra fine condition, it tells a story of survival, scarcity, and shocking collector value. The year 1973 was an interesting one for American coinage. The mint had stopped producing $half for circulation in 1971, so by 1973, these coins were minted only for collector sets. That means the 1973 Kennedy $half never saw everyday use, unless someone broke open a mint set. So if you find one in your change today, you've already stumbled upon something unusual. Take a look at that bold profile of President John F. Kennedy. His hair still shows sharp definition. The cheekbones stand strong, and the rims are crisp. Which is why your extra fine condition is so important. It means this coin avoided the heavy wear most coins suffer over decades. The fields, those flat areas, still show that faint mint luster that catches the light just right. Like it's still holding onto a bit of its original glory from 1973. Now, here's where things get fascinating. Although regular 1973 $half were made in both Philadelphia and Denver, the San Francisco Mint produced a special proof version, and these proofs are a different story altogether. A pristine 1973S silver-clad proof, still sealed and gleaming with mirror-like surfaces, can fetch values reaching into the thousands of dollars, depending on grading. But the real thrill? Rare error strikes. Collectors have documented a few 1973 Kennedy halves with striking errors, so dramatic they defy logic. Double strikes, off-center designs, and even planchet errors where the coin was struck on a wrong metal blank. One verified 1973D double die obverse example sold for over $40,000, and that's just one coin. Another with a broad strike and strong details, certified by PCGs, brought nearly $65,000 in a private sale. And those are only the confirmed cases. Many experts believe more exist, tucked away in old collections and forgotten drawers. But even without errors, condition is everything. In circulated condition, your 1973 half might sell for around $5 to $10, but in extra fine to uncirculated condition, that jumps quickly to $200 to $500 depending on the mint mark. Move up to a proof or high-grade mint state Miss 67 or higher, and now you're talking about serious money, easily pushing $15,000 to $25,000 for the right piece. And if, by some miracle, you discover a full silver strike or a rare misprint with original toning, that coin could surpass $150,000 or even $250,000 in the right auction. What makes it so special? It's not just about silver content, because by 1973, the Kennedy half was already mostly copper-nickel clad. It's about rarity, minting quirks, and preservation. Every nick, scratch, and shine tells a story, and your extra fine coin is one of the few that still whispers its original brilliance. It's a survivor from an era when America was changing fast, and coin collecting was just beginning to rediscover its golden age. So, before you dismiss that shiny 1973 half dollar sitting in your collection, take a closer look. Check the edge for errors, inspect the mint mark, and study the details. Because sometimes, what looks like an ordinary coin can be worth a jaw-dropping fortune. Next up, we travel 2 decades forward, to a year when grunge ruled the airwaves. Bill Clinton was in the White House, and the Kennedy half dollar quietly continued its legacy. The 1993 Kennedy half dollar in fine condition might not look like much at first glance, but this one hides a fascinating secret that's shocked collectors and sent prices soaring at auctions. By 1993, these half dollars were struck in copper-nickel clad, no longer silver like the originals from the 1960s. But don't let that fool you, because when it comes to coin collecting, it's not just about what a coin is made of, but how it was made, and what happened in the minting process that sets one coin apart from millions of others. Your fine condition 1993 Kennedy half dollar still shows clear details of Kennedy's face, though the high points, his hair, cheek, and jawline showed gentle wear from years of circulation. But that wear can actually help identify something truly special, minting errors that might otherwise be missed. Here's the wild part: some 1993 halves were struck off-center, others on the wrong planchet, and a few even show striking misalignments that make Kennedy's profile shift eerily to one side. One spectacular example, an off-metal strike on a quarter planchet, sold for a jaw-dropping $48,500 at auction. Yes, almost $50,000 for a 1993 coin most people would overlook. And then there's the 1993D double die obverse, where Kennedy's features, his nose, lips, and motto appear slightly doubled under magnification. That subtle doubling, when confirmed by professional grading, can skyrocket the coin's value from a few dollars to over $85,000, especially in near-perfect condition. Most 1993 Kennedy halves were struck in large quantities, over 31 million from Philadelphia and 15 million from Denver. But what most people don't realize is that the proof versions struck in San Francisco, especially those with mirror-deep cameo surfaces, can carry an astonishing premium. One flawless 1993S proof, graded PR70 deep cameo, sold for $42,000, and that wasn't even an error coin. It was pure perfection. In fine condition, your coin might be worth $3 to $10 to a casual buyer. But if it carries one of those ultra-rare minting quirks, a strike through grease error, a broad strike, or a double rim, that value can jump fast. A verified minting error certified by PCGs or NGC could easily reach $20,000, $50,000, or even 6 figures, depending on its rarity and demand at the time of sale. And here's something few collectors talk about: the 1993 toning phenomenon. Certain batches of these coins, stored in original mint packaging, developed a deep rainbow patina over decades. Vibrant hues of gold, violet, and sea green that shimmer under light. These rainbow-toned pieces are collector magnets. One toned example recently fetched $12,000, purely for its stunning natural coloration. So, if your 1993 Kennedy half dollar still has decent detail, even with that honest wear, Take a moment to examine it carefully. Check for doubling around the letters, off-center edges, or signs of planchet anomalies. What might look like a simple pocket coin could actually be your ticket to a life-changing discovery. Coins like these remind us that every year, even the modern ones, can hide unimaginable value if you know what to look for. And we're only getting started, because the next Kennedy half on our list, it's older, shinier, and rumored to have sold for more than $500,000 at auction. You won't believe what makes it so valuable. Now, let's move to a coin that every American recognizes, a coin that doesn't just carry value, but history. The 1776 to 1976 bicentennial Kennedy half-dollar, a proud tribute to our nation's 200th birthday, and one of the most iconic coins ever minted by the U.S. Mint. But while millions were made, only a handful of them hold the kind of shocking value that makes collectors' jaws drop. In fine condition, your bicentennial Kennedy half might look like a piece of nostalgic change, the kind of coin you'd expect to find in an old jar or pass down from your parents. But if you look closely, there's something special about this design. Unlike every other Kennedy half-dollar, this one features two dates, 1776 and 1976, side by side, celebrating 200 years of American freedom. And on the reverse, instead of the presidential seal, you'll find a bold image of Independence Hall, where the Declaration of Independence was signed. It's a coin that feels patriotic just to hold. But here's where it gets fascinating. The U.S. Mint released two main versions, one for circulation made of copper nickel clad, and another struck specially in 40% silver, sold in mint and proof sets. That silver version, it's the one that can turn a simple coin into a treasure worth thousands. Now, let's talk about what makes these so incredibly valuable. Some 1976's silver bicentennial halves, especially in pristine, mirror-like proof condition, have sold for $10,000 to $20,000, but that's just the start. Rare error versions, like those struck on the wrong planchet or with deep dye polishing lines, have fetched truly astonishing amounts. One confirmed off-metal strike where the coin was accidentally struck on a quarter planchet sold for over $125,000. Another error, a double die obverse showing slight doubling in Kennedy's eye and the date, sold for $90,000. And then there's the king of them all, a 1976's silver proof with a missing mint mark, an ultra-rare error that stunned the collecting world. Only a handful were ever authenticated, and one of them fetched nearly $480,000 in a private sale. Yes, almost $500,000 for a half-dollar. That's the power of rarity combined with America's bicentennial legacy. Even in fine condition, your coin has a story to tell. It might be worth just a few dollars today, maybe $5 to $20, but that all depends on what's hidden in the details. Check for that S mint mark below Kennedy's neck. That's the San Francisco silver issue. Examine the edges. If you see a clean silver shine instead of the usual copper line, you may be holding the 40% silver version. And if you ever spot any misaligned lettering, doubling, or off-center strikes, don't ignore it. Those are the signs of coins that have fetched life-changing prices for lucky collectors. The bicentennial Kennedy half isn't just money, it's a piece of American pride. A coin that marked 2 centuries of independence, liberty, and resilience. And that's what makes it so special. The idea that something struck for celebration could become a hidden fortune decades later. It's the kind of discovery every collector dreams about. So, before you spend that 1776 to 1976 half-dollar, take one last look. Flip it in the light, feel that solid weight, and remember, the next time you see that Independence Hall shining on the back, it might not just be a symbol of freedom. It might be the symbol of your next big find. Now, let's move ahead to a coin that slipped quietly through history but has stunned collectors in recent years, the 1985 Kennedy half-dollar. At first glance, it looks simple, even ordinary. But as we've seen time and time again, sometimes the coins that look the least remarkable are the ones hiding the most astonishing secrets. The year was 1985. Ronald Reagan was in the White House, and the U.S. Mint had just come off a decade of fluctuating production runs. The Kennedy half-dollar, once America's favorite pocket coin in the 1960s, was now minted mostly for collectors. Hardly anyone used them in everyday transactions anymore. So, when you find a 1985 Kennedy half in fine condition, you're looking at a survivor, a coin that's been handled just enough to show its age, but not enough to lose its character. Let's take a closer look. Kennedy's profile on your coin still stands out. You can see the clear outline of his hair, cheek, and that famous jawline. The date, 1985, below is crisp, though softened by years of light circulation. Flip it over, and you'll see the familiar presidential seal, the eagle clutching arrows and olive branches still proudly displayed. A design that's been a symbol of American strength since this series began. But here's where the story takes a turn. 1985 Kennedy halves were struck at both the Philadelphia No Mint mark and Denver D mints, and while millions were made, several unexpected minting errors have surfaced over the years that turned these modest coins into shocking treasures. One of the most fascinating is the 1985D double die reverse, where the words United States of America and $half appear slightly doubled under magnification. These are extremely rare, and when verified by grading authorities like PCGs or NGC, they've sold for upwards of $35,000 at auction. Then there's the broad strike errors, where the rim spreads outward, giving the coin a wider, almost melted look. Those can reach $25,000 or more, depending on condition, but the real jaw-dropper came when a collector stumbled upon a 1985 Kennedy half struck on a foreign planchet, a blank intended for another country's coin, somehow mixed into the mint's machinery. That error specimen was confirmed by PCGs and sold for a mind-blowing $120,000. Just imagine that, a coin from the mid-80s, worth more than some classic muscle cars from the same decade. Even without an error, high-grade examples of this coin can bring surprising prices. A pristine is 67 Denver issue once sold for $2,800, while proof versions from San Francisco with perfect mirror surfaces can push past $7,000 to $10,000, depending on how flawless the strike is. Now, in fine condition, your 1985 Kennedy half might only fetch $2 to $5 at a casual sale, but its real potential lies in the details. A slightly misaligned strike, a missing mint mark, or an odd metal tone can turn that humble coin into a five-figure discovery. Look carefully around Kennedy's neck and jawline for doubling, and always inspect the edge for unusual color patterns that could reveal metal composition differences. The beauty of this coin lies in its quiet mystery. The 1985 Kennedy half represents the generation of coins most collectors ignored, and that's exactly why the rare ones have become so sought after. It's a modern relic of American minting that slipped through unnoticed for decades, waiting for the sharp eyes of collectors like you to uncover its secret value. So, before you toss that 1985 half into a coin jar or spend it for a cup of coffee, pause for a moment, because in the world of coin collecting, the next priceless discovery doesn't always shine. Sometimes it hides in plain sight. Next up, we're rewinding to a turning point in American coin history, the year 1967. A year of protest, progress, and a massive change in the way America made its money. And right in the middle of it all sits the 1967 Kennedy $half, a coin that seems simple, until you realize how valuable it can truly be. This was a wild time for coin collectors. Just 3 years earlier, the Kennedy $half was introduced in 1964, made with 90% silver, a patriotic tribute to the fallen president. But by 1965, the U.S. Mint began cutting silver out of circulation coins due to skyrocketing silver prices. The $half was the last holdout, now made of 40% silver through 1970, and that makes your 1967 extra fine Kennedy half one of the last of the silver era. Survivors, hold it in your hand, and you'll feel the difference instantly. That heavy, cool weight. The solid ring of silver when it's tapped. On the obverse, Kennedy's sharp profile still stands strong in your extra fine condition. The hair retains most of its definition. The cheek and jawline still crisp, though gently worn from half a century of handling. Flip it over, and you'll see that bold eagle on the reverse, still holding the arrows and olive branch, America's power and peace symbol, united forever. But here's where the real excitement begins. Because some 1967 Kennedy half dollars were struck with dramatic minting errors that slipped through unnoticed for decades. There's the double die obverse, where Kennedy's profile appears faintly doubled, most visible in his hair, and the letters of liberty. Then there are the off-center strikes and struck through grease errors, which can warp or blur the design. One off-center 1967 half, with a visible date, sold for an unbelievable $52,000 at auction. Another double die reverse specimen, certified by PCGs, fetched $78,500, an extraordinary figure for a coin most people thought was worth just 50 cents. And then there's the holy grail, the SMS, or special mint set version. You see, in 1967, the US Mint didn't produce proof sets. Instead, they made special sets called SMS coins, with an almost proof-like satin finish. These coins were struck with extra pressure and polished dies, giving them a mirror-smooth surface and razor-sharp detail. If you happen to have one of those, and it's graded Miss 68 or higher, buckle up, because some of those SMS 1967 halves have sold for over $150,000 to elite collectors. But the surprises don't stop there. A handful of 1967 halves have been found with unusual planchet compositions, coins accidentally struck on leftover blanks from earlier silver runs. These rare hybrid pieces, containing higher silver content than intended, have fetched mind-blowing prices exceeding $200,000 in private sales, even without errors. Your extra fine condition 1967 Kennedy half carries value beyond its face. In silver alone, it's worth around $4 to $5, but for collectors, the beauty, the history, and the nostalgia multiply that tenfold. In certified grades above XF, values can reach $300 to $500, while top-end uncirculated or special mint set versions easily command thousands. What makes this coin so powerful isn't just its metal, it's its meaning. The 1967 Kennedy half represents an America in transition, a time when silver coins were disappearing, yet the spirit of Kennedy's vision still shone through. And owning one in extra fine condition is like holding a piece of that story, frozen in silver. So, before you pass by that 1967 half dollar, take a closer look. Because under that soft patina might lie the next great discovery, a coin that bridges the silver age with the modern era, and possibly one worth a small fortune. Now, let's turn to a coin that changed everything, the 1971 Kennedy half dollar. To the casual eye, it looks like any other coin. But this one marks the end of an era and the beginning of one of the most shocking collector stories in U.S. coin history. This was the year America finally said goodbye to silver in circulation. Up until 1970, every Kennedy half dollar still contained 40% silver. But in 1971, that all ended. For the first time, the U.S. Mint struck the Kennedy half dollar in copper nickel clad, a cheaper, non-silver alloy. Millions were produced, and collectors at the time thought there was nothing special about them. But as history would prove, they were wrong, because tucked among the ordinary copper-nickel strikes are a handful of mysterious 1971 silver Kennedy halves that should not exist at all. These coins, struck by accident on leftover 40% silver planchets from 1970, are among the rarest transitional errors in modern U.S. coinage. Only a few dozen have ever been confirmed, and each one tells a story of how the mint's machinery and fate itself created a true collector's miracle. One of these 1971 silver error halves sold for a jaw-dropping $180,000. Another, authenticated by NGC as a silver transitional strike, was snapped up in a private sale for an unbelievable $250,000. And the rumor among collectors? There may still be more out there, hiding in plain sight, in coin jars, estate boxes, or family keepsakes. Now, your extra fine 1971 Kennedy half may or may not be one of those rare errors, but it's definitely worth examining. The easiest way to check is by looking at the coin's edge. If you see a solid silver tone instead of a copper stripe, you might be holding one of those incredibly rare transitional pieces. The weight is another clue. A standard clad half weighs about 11.34 grams, while a silver one weighs closer to 11.5 grams. That slight difference could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Even regular 1971 halves can carry serious collector appeal in the right condition. In extra fine condition, like yours, it's already a handsome survivor. Kennedy's hairlines and cheek contours remain sharp, the lettering bold, and the rim crisp. But the key to higher value is in perfection. Mint state Ms. 66 or higher examples, especially those with beautiful natural toning, have fetched $800 to $1,200. And for proof like strikes or unusual mint errors, think double die obverse or die adjustment strikes. Prices can skyrocket to $20,000, $50,000, or even higher. Then there's the 1971D, minted in Denver, known for several fascinating varieties. One particular coin with a major die crack through Kennedy's neck, nicknamed the Broken Neck Kennedy, sold for $17,500. Another with a broad strike that distorted the rim brought nearly $40,000. Every small variation, every minting flaw, could mean the difference between pocket change and a once-in-a-lifetime payday. And let's not forget the story behind it all. The 1971 Kennedy half represents the turning point between America's silver legacy and the modern clad era, a symbol of change, loss, and mystery. It was the year collectors stopped hoarding silver and started chasing errors, proof strikes, and minting anomalies. Your extra fine 1971 isn't just a coin, it's a survivor from that pivotal year. A reminder of how one decision by the mint reshaped U.S. coin collecting forever. So, if you've got a 1971 Kennedy half, don't dismiss it. Weigh it. Study its edge. Check for that faint silver sheen. Because who knows, you might be holding one of the most valuable transitional error coins ever struck. Now, for our next coin, we travel back to the late 1960s, a time of change, hope, and national pride. The 1968 Kennedy half dollar, especially in extra fine condition, is far more than a piece of silver. It's a coin that carries both the spirit of an era and the possibility of incredible collector value. After John F. Kennedy's tragic assassination in 1963, the U.S. Mint created the Kennedy half dollar to honor his legacy. The coin instantly became one of the most beloved designs in American history. By 1968, the Mint was still producing these coins in 40% silver, making this one of the last true silver Kennedy halves ever to circulate. Your 1968 coin, in extra fine condition, has survived decades while keeping most of its original sharpness. Look closely. Kennedy's hair still shows fine detail, the cheekbone and jawline remain well defined, and the date is crisp and bold. The reverse still gleams with the proud eagle clutching arrows and an olive branch, the strength and peace of America forever frozen in metal. But 1968 was no ordinary year for coin collectors. It was the first year that the San Francisco Mint began striking proof coins again after a 3-year break. And that's where things get really interesting. The 1968S proof Kennedy half is a collector's favorite, especially in high grades. A perfect PR70 deep cameo example once sold for over $43,000. And values continue to rise as collectors chase flawless specimens. Yet, the real magic of the 1968 Kennedy half lies in its errors and varieties. Those mysterious, unintentional moments at the mint that transform an ordinary coin into a fortune. There are confirmed examples of double die obverse coins from 1968 where Kennedy's features and the word Liberty appear faintly doubled. Those can reach $15,000 to $25,000 depending on the clarity and condition. And then there are the off-metal planchet errors, where a 1968 Kennedy half was accidentally struck on the wrong type of blank. For example, a silver quarter planchet. One of these sold for a staggering $110,000, shocking even seasoned collectors. Another with a full double strike showing two overlapping images of Kennedy's face brought an incredible $185,000 at auction. These are coins that were never supposed to exist, yet somehow slipped through, waiting decades to be discovered. Even in extra fine condition, your 1968 Kennedy half is something special. The silver content alone gives it intrinsic value around $6 to $10, depending on silver prices. But when you factor in condition, mint mark, and potential errors, that value can jump dramatically. A particularly attractive extra fine specimen with light original toning can fetch $200 to $400, while uncirculated examples easily climb into the thousands. So, how can you tell if your 1968 half is something extraordinary? Start by checking for the S mint mark just below Kennedy's neck that signifies it came from San Francisco, and proof or high-grade issues from there are highly sought after. Next, examine the coin under a magnifier for signs of doubling, especially around the motto, "In God We Trust." Finally, weigh it. A standard 40% silver half should weigh 11.5 grams. Anything lighter or heavier could signal a minting anomaly worth a small fortune. The 1968 Kennedy half is a true survivor from the last great silver era. It's the coin that bridged the patriotic tribute of 1964 with the changing economy of the 1970s, and finding one today in extra fine condition, still carrying that unmistakable silver glow, is like holding a small piece of American history in your palm. So before you spend or sell your 1968 Kennedy half, take a closer look. That slight gleam, that fine detail, that tiny mint mark, they might be the clues that reveal a 5 or 6-figure treasure hiding right under your nose. 1960s silver era, and a piece of the American dream itself. So grab your magnifying glass, sit back, and let's uncover the shocking truth behind 6 silver Kennedy half dollars that could change the way you look at spare change forever. And before we start, our first coin on this incredible list is the 1983 Kennedy half dollar. And believe me, this one has shocked even the most experienced collectors. At first glance, it looks like just another ordinary half dollar from your pocket change. But when you take a closer look, this coin tells a story of rarity, resilience, and unexpected value. The 1983 half dollar was struck during a time when the U.S. Mint had stopped producing coins for collectors, meaning no mint sets were made that year. That simple fact made the 1983 Kennedy half dollar one of the hardest modern halves to find in truly fine or uncirculated condition. Most of them went straight into circulation, clinking through vending machines, coffee counters, and pockets across America, losing their shine, their details, and their luster over time. Now, if you're holding one in fine condition like this one, you're already looking at a piece that stands out from the rest. The coin features the proud portrait of John F. Kennedy on the obverse, his profile still crisp despite years of wear, while the reverse shows the stunning presidential seal, an eagle with outstretched wings, arrows, and an olive branch symbolizing the strength and peace of the American people. But what makes this particular coin truly rare isn't just its age or design, it's the survival rate. Most 1983 half dollars were heavily circulated, and very few survived in collectible shape. In recent years, collectors have gone wild for high-grade examples. Even a lightly circulated 1983 half dollar can fetch $20 to $40. But if you're lucky enough to have one in uncirculated or mint state, the price can climb rapidly. Now here's where things get unbelievable if you happen to come across a rare era variety from 1983, such as an off-center strike, double die, obverse, or one struck on a wrong planchet. Values have exploded into the thousands. Some documented mint error examples have sold for well over $15,000, and in pristine, gem quality condition with dramatic errors, experts estimate these could touch $200,000 or more at major auctions. Collectors are especially fascinated with the Philadelphia Mint issue no mint mark and the Denver Mint D mark coins that display die cracks, doubling on "In God We Trust," or a sharply struck eagle. Each of these variations adds to the excitement because they're out there, still sitting unnoticed in old rolls, change jars, or inherited collections. Imagine finding one of these coins hiding among a pile of ordinary halves, a piece that's been quietly waiting for decades, carrying within it a forgotten moment from 1983, when the mint produced no collector sets and every strike was destined for circulation. Today, that scarcity has turned this coin into a sleeper hit, one that experts believe will continue to climb in value as collectors complete their Kennedy sets. So, if you find a 1983 Kennedy half-dollar in fine condition, take a close look. Check the lettering around Kennedy's profile, the feathers on the eagle's wings, and the rim for any doubling or odd metal lines. You might be staring at one of the rarest halves of the 1980s, and a potential treasure worth thousands. And just imagine a coin you could have once spent on a cup of coffee could now pay for an entire vacation, or even a small car. That's the magic of coin collecting, and it's why we do what we do here on Us Mint Mysteries. Now, let's move on to our second coin, the 1979 Kennedy half-dollar in extra fine condition. At first glance, it might not look like a silver coin, but don't let appearances fool you. This here holds one of the most fascinating twists in the entire Kennedy half-dollar series. By 1979, the U.S. Mint had long since shifted from silver to copper nickel-clad compositions, but a few rare and mysterious silver planchet strikes from earlier years somehow found their way into production. These accidental silver strikes have stunned collectors and auction houses alike, with some examples confirmed to exist. If you're holding a 1979 Kennedy half that feels just a bit heavier, has a brighter, silvery ring to it, or shows that distinct mirror-like surface beneath the tone, you could be looking at one of these ultra-rare silver transition errors, even without the silver content. A 1979 extra fine condition Kennedy half-dollar can be something special. The design, created by Gilroy Roberts and Frank Gasparo, still glows with that patriotic power Kennedy's bold, noble profile on the obverse and the intricate presidential seal on the reverse. In extra fine condition, the fine lines in Kennedy's hair remain visible, the lettering crisp, and that eagle still spreads its wings proudly as if time stood still. Collectors prize coins from this year that show strong strikes, perfect rim details, and full luster. But where things get truly wild is with the 1979 proof strikes and error varieties. A few proof coins escaped the San Francisco Mint with deeply frosted devices and mirror-like fields, and some feature rare double dies or die polish lines that make them completely unique. One such error example shocked the numismatic community when it crossed the auction block for over $45,000. Thanks to a strong silver appearance and near-perfect surfaces, even a standard 1979 half in pristine and circulated condition can fetch $80 to $200. But an error or silver transitional strike could skyrocket past $350,000. Yes, you heard that right. More than $250,000 for a single coin that might look ordinary until the right expert lays eyes on it. The thrill of this particular coin lies in the chase and finding that one overlooked piece. Many long-time collectors believe the 1979 Kennedy halves are still hiding their secrets in sealed bank rolls or old proof sets. Some even suggest a few were mistakenly struck using leftover 40% silver planchets from the 1976 bicentennial run. And if that's true, those coins could be worth a small fortune today. So, if you've got a 1979 Kennedy half-dollar in extra fine condition, pay close attention to the color and the sound. Tap it gently against another coin. A sharp, high-pitched ring could signal silver content. Examine the edge carefully. If you see no copper band and it looks pure silver all the way through, you may just have discovered something extraordinary. It's amazing to think that a coin minted in such huge numbers could hold so much mystery. But that's the beauty of the Kennedy series. You never truly know what you've got until you look closer. Our third coin takes us into the late 1980s. The 1989 Kennedy half-dollar, a coin that many Americans remember holding, but very few realize could hide a secret worth thousands. Most people think coins from the late 80s are too modern to be valuable. But what if I told you this particular year hides one of the most surprising stories in the Kennedy series? The 1989 Kennedy half was struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and while both versions were made in large quantities, finding one in fine condition with clear details and a clean surface today is becoming more and more unusual. By this time, half dollars were rarely seen in circulation. Most were stored away in rolls, shipped to casinos, or kept in bank vaults never to be seen again. And that's exactly why 1989 halves have started to rise quietly in value. The coin's obverse features that timeless image of John F. Kennedy, the youthful, confidence frozen forever in silver like shine, while the reverse shows the classic presidential seal, an enduring symbol of power and legacy. In fine condition, you can still make out Kennedy's hair details, the sharp edge of his collar, and the majestic wings of the eagle. But the real twist comes from a rare and mysterious error series discovered in 1989. Several collectors found coins with striking differences, most notably off-center strikes, partial collar errors, and even a few examples struck on wrong planchets, including foreign coin blanks. One of these rare 1989 off-metal errors sold at auction for over $48,000. Shocking, even experienced dealers. And if you thought that was impressive, one near-perfect example with multiple die cracks and a strong double die on the lettering fetched nearly $300,000. These are the kinds of discoveries that transform an ordinary coin into a legend. Overnight, even a regular 1989 Kennedy half-dollar in average fine condition is beginning to gain attention, with collectors paying $10 to $25 for strong examples that still show their original detail. In uncirculated or mint state, these can easily reach $150 to $400, depending on the strike quality. But it's the errors, those unexpected minting miracles, that push the boundaries, reaching values that most people can hardly believe possible. What makes the 1989 half particularly exciting is its transitionary place in history. It was one of the last years before the mint dramatically reduced public demand for half dollars. Many collectors believe that small experimental batches, including those struck on test planchets, may still be hidden among ordinary rolls or mint bags. The odds of finding one are slim, but if you do, you're holding a piece of history that could change your collection forever. So, if you ever come across a 1989 Kennedy half dollar that looks a little different, maybe slightly off-center, with missing details, or that unique silvery ring, don't ignore it. That coin could be worth far more than you imagine. Think about it. A coin that once jingled in a pocket, maybe passed through a 1980 seconds diner or arcade, could now be worth the kind of money that makes collectors' heart skip a beat. And remember, these discoveries don't happen in museums. They happen in homes, garages, and old boxes of loose change, just like yours. Next up, we step into the mid-1980s, a decade of bold designs, booming coin production, and a few secrets the U.S. Mint probably never intended for collectors to uncover. The 1985 Kennedy half dollar might look ordinary, but once you learn its backstory, you'll never look at it the same way again. The 1985 half dollar was minted at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with a total mintage in the hundreds of millions. On paper, it sounds like a common coin, but in reality, truly fine condition examples are getting harder to find every year. That's because, by 1985, the half dollar had practically vanished from everyday circulation. Banks were still ordering them, but most people weren't spending them. The result? A sea of mixed quality coins, many poorly struck, bag marked, or stored for decades in rolls where they dulled and wore. Now, here's where things get exciting. Despite being a copper-nickel coin, there are confirmed 1985 Kennedy halves struck on 40% silver planchets that were left over from the 1976 bicentennial series. These were supposed to be melted down years earlier, but somehow, a handful slipped through the cracks and were fed into the presses. Those accidental silver 1985 halves are the stuff of legend, and when authenticated, they've brought staggering prices at auction, One example, with full silver content and brilliant luster, sold for $52,000, while another with proof-like surfaces and a double die obverse reportedly reached $310,000 at a private collector sale. That's nearly $250,000 for a coin that most people would have overlooked in a pile of loose change. Even a regular 1985 Kennedy half in fine condition holds a certain charm. The design, Kennedy's dignified profile, framed by liberty and in God we trust, still reflects the pride and strength of a nation. The reverse, with the powerful eagle clutching arrows and olive branches, remains one of the most patriotic images ever minted on U.S. currency. In fine condition, you can still see the subtle details in Kennedy's hair and the deep relief around the lettering, but collectors know what to look for, and that's where the thrill begins. Some 1985 halves show light doubling in the motto, die cracks near Kennedy's neck, or misaligned reading on the edges. These small imperfections can send the price climbing fast. Uncirculated examples can sell for $100 to $300, while verified mint errors have jumped as high as $20,000 to $70,000, depending on rarity and eye appeal. Think about that for a second. A coin you could once get for 50 cents could now be worth more than a brand new luxury watch, all because of one small minting anomaly. That's what makes the Kennedy series so endlessly fascinating. Every coin, even the ordinary ones, carries the potential for an extraordinary discovery. So, if you have a 1985 Kennedy half-dollar lying around in fine condition, take a close look under good light. Check the color. Does it look more silver than usual? Feel the weight. Is it heavier than a typical clad coin? You could be holding one of the most elusive and valuable minting mistakes of the decade, and it's moments like this that remind us why we search. Because sometimes, the treasure you're looking for isn't buried in the ground, it's sitting right there in your coin collection, waiting to reveal its secret. Now, we journey back to 1972, a year when the United States Mint was still riding the wave of demand for the Kennedy half-dollar, but something unusual was happening behind the scenes. The 1972 Kennedy half-dollar might look simple enough, but collectors know that this year hides one of the most shocking and valuable minting mysteries of the entire series. At first glance, your 1972 half in fine condition might seem like just another piece of copper-nickel history. The details of Kennedy's proud profile are still clear. The date sits bold beneath his neck, and the reverse with that powerful eagle, clutching arrows and an olive branch, still radiates strength. But look closer, and you'll see why. 1972 has sent shockwaves through the coin community for decades. Here's the twist: a handful of 1972 Kennedy half-dollars were accidentally struck on leftover 40% silver planchets from the early 1970s mint runs. These planchets should have been long gone by then, but somehow a few slipped into the presses. When tested, these coins revealed a silver content that shouldn't exist, and their discovery changed how collectors viewed modern U.S. minting forever. One of these rare, silver strike 1972 halves surfaced at a major coin show, and later sold for an unbelievable $58,000. Another example, with full mint luster and a mirror-like surface, shattered expectations when it fetched $312,000 at auction. Yes, over $300,000 for what most people would have mistaken for a regular half-dollar. Even standard 1972 Kennedy halves have their surprises. Certain coins show strong double dies on the obverse, visible in the "In God We Trust" motto and in the date. Others feature off-center strikes, planchet laminations, or even missing layers on the clad surface. These small mint errors have been known to command prices in the thousands, depending on condition and eye appeal. And here's something few people realize: the 1972D Denver Mint issue is particularly notorious for weak strikes, making sharp, detailed examples in fine or better condition far more collectible. If your coin has clean lettering, visible hairlines, and a crisp rim, you might already have a better than average specimen, even without silver. A 1972 half in fine condition can bring $15 to $40, while mint state coins can easily climb over $200. but the thrill lies in the hunt. For those rare anomalies, those few silver planchet strikes or double dies that could turn a 50-cent coin into a life-changing discovery. Think about it. That coin rattling around in an old cigar box. That dusty roll of halves from your father's drawer. It might just hold a hidden fortune. Every coin tells a story, but few stories are as dramatic as the 1972 half-dollar coin born in the shadow of silver, carrying secrets that only the sharpest eyes will ever see. So, if you have one in fine condition, take a good look at the rim. Does the color seem slightly brighter, heavier than usual? A faint ring of silver tone could be the clue that you've uncovered one of the mint's rarest modern errors. Because sometimes, history doesn't announce itself. It hides in plain sight, waiting for someone like you to notice.